Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you're having a fantastic Monday. Today, we've got an exciting live stream. Today, I've got Martin as well as Marcus from YIO Remote joining us. It's a brand new remote that they're in the process of getting ready to manufacture in the near future, and they've got their Kickstarter. So, I was recently on their live stream not too long ago, I guess about a week ago, and was listening to kind of what this remote has to offer. And I'll just be honest, guys, I just got excited. And so I reached out to the team and I said, hey, would it be possible to get you here on a live stream to be able to share with my audience kind of what your product is, what you're about? And in particular, I know for me, I've used a Harmony Elite and a Harmony One probably over the past 13 years. And so I'm curious to see like, okay, what's going to replace my Harmony, when I get ready to do that upgrade. And so I just see a whole lot of potential in the YIO remote. And so, guys, go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of let us know who you are. And we're going to be answering a lot of questions in the chat. So make sure that you just ask those. We'll be answering some of those in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can here live as well. So, Martin, go ahead and tell us who you are, and we'll get started.
Yeah. So I'm Martin, one of the founders of YIO Remote, and yeah, I was the one actually who started this whole thing a few years ago with the DIY version. Um, yeah, that's me, and I'm very short.
All right.
Yeah, I'm Marcus, also one of the founders. I learned from the remote back in the days when I saw a post on the Home Assistant thread, and then I joined very early on the Discord and asked Martin out and get him some feedback about the remote. He was so kind and sent me over a version 1 prototype as well, and I checked it out, and yeah, it was fine for me to use it, and I've done some work since then for getting it in the right direction as well.
Very cool. Well, here's a good question to start off. Where in the world does the name YIO come from? And I apologize on my video that I made just earlier last week. I got excited. And I'm like, I had a comment from somebody, and they said that it reminded them of their Neo remote. And so as I'm doing my video, I read that comment, and it stuck in my head, Neo and YIO. So the whole video, I'm like, yeah, check out the YIO remote. And I'm like, you dummy. I even asked you guys prior to making that video, how do you pronounce it? So it's actually YIO remote. So kind of tell us what it stands for there.
Yeah, so it stands for your input output. So basically what a remote does is get some input from some devices and send some output. So that's what it stands for. And it's like everybody's pronouncing it differently. So
Sure.
I guess as many different countries, they have it in many different ways. So I think it's fine to just say it how you like it.
Very cool. So they're not super strict on that. So I just want to say hi to a couple of guys that are in the chat. Robert, thanks for joining us. Brazil, looks like we got DJ Cook. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. Zickfrick. Okay. Hopefully I got that right. Jacob, thanks for joining us, man. Lots of good folks in here. Lester's in the house, as well as Rolex. Reginald, good to see you, brother. Megatron, a lot of folks that I know and I recognize. So glad you guys could make it today. So kind of to start out, I know a question that I've asked, and I'd kind of be grateful if you could elaborate to it. I'll tell you, before I even start that, one thing to let you guys know, this remote isn't like fully developed. It's in the early stages of development. At the probably sometime after we get through some questions in generality, I've asked Martin to kind of give us a demo of an actual remote. He'll kind of show us where it's kind of at currently, what features it has. Of course, they'll talk about, what features they would like to implement into this remote. But they do have a Kickstarter, and at the end, I'll post a link to it. I know Lee Michael said on the previous video I made, he said he's already backed the Kickstarter last week. Now he's just got to wait for July for it to ship. So I know these guys are appreciative of that. And so let's just kind of go through just some questions, maybe in general. So for me, what makes the YIO remote maybe different from, especially like the Harmony Elite? I mean, that's kind of was Harmony's flagship remote, and I know I've seen some things that your remote offers that is similar but also different, kind of in the way it forms and its function. And so, kind of maybe give us some insight as to far as that.
Yeah. So basically, since Harmony introduced their remote, a lot of things changed. And I think it was time to kind of adapt to these changes. And what we are doing, we realized that a lot of people have their own smart home hubs or smart home systems or something like that. So we thought that instead of adding an additional hub and just adding to this complexity, we put all the brains and logic into the remote itself. So if you already have a hub, you can connect to it and control all your devices. But if you don't, then the remote has the brain power and the resources to be able to connect to certain devices like Philips Hue or Sonos and connect them directly. So you can achieve the same, actually more functionality by having all the brains and muscle in the remote. We do have a smart charging dock which provides the IR capabilities. So you can use that to send IR commands or learn IR commands. And that's a nice extension to it. But the remote is doing the heavy lifting. And instead of using RF that Logitech was doing, we're using your Wi-Fi network. So basically, both the dock and the remote connects to your Wi-Fi network and communicates over that. So with this, we can actually extend the range a little bit because RF is only good for, I don't know, 10 meters or something. But probably have a really good Wi-Fi coverage because you use your smartphones and iPads and all sorts of devices. So you can actually just walk around with the remote freely in your house. And if you have Wi-Fi there, then it's probably going to work. So I would say that's the main difference in compared to Logitech. We have a lot more, but this is kind of like the concept and the idea behind it is quite different, I think.
Very cool. So the brains are actually in the unit itself, and so that's where all the processing takes place. That's where all the kind of the mathematical formulas, I guess, the decoding or whatever it has to do. So that's definitely kind of different than having another hub, because I know I've got a hub for Harmony. I've got a hub for my Lutron, and then if you got other devices, you got hub upon hub upon hub. So that is a quite a bit different approach for that. So that's definitely pretty cool. Definitely. So let's see. So here's some more questions. I just went through, and we'll just kind of blow through these. I think this will be kind of beneficial. And again, Marcus, if you want to kind of keep an eye on the chat, and if there's a question that comes up that you want to address, or Martin, by all means, just kind of mention their name. I'll try to pop it up on the screen. So the OLED screen, well, what's that?
Yeah, sorry, just wanted to say that actually I think Niels also showed up from the team. So he's also in the chat. And
Niels, how are you, sir?
Hello.
Very cool. I'm glad you told me, because he's like sitting right behind my camera, so I can't see you.
Yeah, I was backstage for a while.
Oh, sorry about that.
All the cool people are backstage, right? So
there you go. Yeah. So Niels, give us an introduction. Who are you, and kind of what do you do in the company?
Yeah, I'm Niels. I'm a tech enthusiast like yourself, and well, Marcus and I were very active on NIO when NIO was a thing. But then came Martin along with this great idea to build something ourselves. And so I hopped on.
Very cool. Very cool, man. Glad to have you. So here was one of the questions that came up, and we'll kind of show you physically a little bit later on in the demonstration, but the OLED screen looks amazing. So that's one big difference. You got this beautiful OLED, and we'll be able to see a demo of that in a little bit. One concern is that the flat panel hard buttons. He likes hard separation so he can feel the buttons without looking at the remote, like, even in the dark. So kind of give some insight to that, maybe, if you want.
Yeah. So we actually have some little notches on the buttons itself, so you can feel where the buttons are. And in between the buttons, we have obviously a little gap, but I will show you later that all the buttons are tapering down at the edge. So when your hand rests on the remote and you're trying to feel out the buttons with your finger, you can actually feel this little kind of tapered edge. So you can feel where one button ends and where the next one starts.
Sure.
So with this one, I think it's quite easy to actually differentiate in between the buttons. But the good thing is that we are still haven't started manufacturing yet. So we have a couple of units that some people who are using the remote. So we are gathering feedback, and if it turns out that this design is not working, then obviously we're going to improve it. So yeah.
Very cool there. So I know one of the big questions that's come up in my chat is, what can we expect in terms of supported devices at launch? And just to preface that, your team of how many?
We have 4 people.
There's 4 guys, okay? So these are passionate enthusiasts, home theater, 2-channel, music, audio, video, all that stuff, integration. They love this, but there's only 4 of them. So when we're
Yeah.
thinking of, how's this going to compare like to a massive company like Logitech, we do have to be kind of realistic, but I think you've got an interesting solution. So kind of share with us maybe where they can find what devices you're planning on supporting initially. Because I think you mentioned you've got a place that they can find that information.
Yeah.
And then, how will that database, how are you going to grow that when there's only 4 of you?
Yeah. So basically, you can look up the devices and integration that we're planning to support on the Kickstarter page, and I would group them into 2 categories basically. And one is the IR devices. Obviously, we're not Logitech; we're not a huge company, so we won't have the same database from day one that they have. We're gonna have a number of devices in our database. But we also provide a functionality that you can learn your IR commands through the dock, and we'll make it available for the community to upload their IR codes to the database. So if you have something and you couldn't find it in the database, you can upload it and share it with everybody else. And on top of this, we'll be supporting hex codes and pronto codes and all these standardized IR codes. So if you have the code somewhere or found it somewhere on the internet, you can just upload it to the remote. So to compensate this, that we are not going to start with a huge database, we'll be providing a lot more options to expand that database. And we're hoping that the community is going to pitch in with some codes, and we'll be also constantly updating the database as we find new devices or we get requests for adding new devices. So that's kind of the IR part of things. And then we have the IP control, which is basically going through Wi-Fi. So we have a list of home automation systems, Home Assistant, Homey, OpenHab, etc., that we're planning to support. So if you have some devices in Home Assistant, for example, set up lights, blinds, media players, etc., then you'll be able to control those through the remote. But at the same time, we're also going to be supporting certain devices directly, like Philips Hue or Sonos, and services like Spotify. So if you don't have a hub, then you could just set these up individually, and you can control these devices or systems.
Yeah, especially on the home automation integrations, it wouldn't make sense to build a new home automation platform because there are such good options like Homey, Home Assistant, and name a few, and we can tie in perfectly, and everything on your home is controllable that way. So with that, we make huge steps into supporting all kinds of technologies because it's already there. It's just the integration that we provide to tie in those 2 products. Doesn't matter if it's Homey or Home Assistant. For the user, it's transparent. You have your lights and everything that you can control, and we handle the rest.
Yeah.
So,
There was
no
actually
need to recreate the wheel, right?
there
No,
was actually
no. And they do a really good job at it. So
And I
Yeah, and
think
that's
there was
what
a
they
real
focus on. Sure.
sorry. There was a related question from Chris Kidsman,
Okay.
way up in the chat. He is asking of if we limit the number of devices we support with the remote. And that's basically not what we like to do. So we let the remote do all the handling, or the integration systems do all the handling, but we did not put any virtual limit in there. So you can control, if you have some, let's say, a system with up to 500 LED lamps or so, you can individually control. It shouldn't be an issue for the remote to handle it. It may just be that the requests will be stacked up on together and your Wi-Fi is having a hard time asking the bulbs if they are on or off or something like that. But there is no limit, like for the Logitech part with 500, I think, or something, or for a homey normal setup without the pro version that you can only support 5 cloud devices or stuff like that. That's not something we plan to do. So, yeah.
Very cool.
And I
Hey,
think
Don.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to mention one more thing that's I think could provide a lot of possibilities for the community, is that we recently just announced that we're open sourcing actually the UI application and the web configurator application. And we started with an open API from day one. So we are providing an API on the remote that you can use to basically create your own integration, connect the remote to your own system in the way you would like to do. And by making these two applications open source, basically you have a lot of customization options. So if you don't like the fonts that we use in the UI, then if you know how to do it, you can change it.
Nice. So definitely have some for those of you guys that are kind of like these little programmer dudes. Have at it, man. That's pretty awesome. That will not be me,
Yeah.
man. I need you to bake some stuff into the software that I can just click some buttons and drag and drop, and I'll be just
And
fine.
with this API, the community will be able to, for example, I don't know, create a integration for a system and
Cool.
share it with the others. So
Very
we're
cool.
gonna we plan to support a lot of integrations from when we're launching,
Right.
but we'll have a developer program for those who are interested in developing, and we're hoping that the community will pitch in with their own custom crazy integration. So
Yeah.
actually, it could grow much faster than we could do ourselves.
Yeah. I think that's the power of community. When you get, multiple people and you open that up to them, I'm sure there's some risks there, but it's one of those things where, you know what, we're four guys and we need some help. And so people that love to do that and they have the ability and the gifts and the skill set, I think that's a great option for kind of expanding that. So, Don, appreciate the super chat from Horizon Home Theater. He says, my AV equipment is in a closet separate from my theater. How will the remote communicate with my equipment that is in a separate equipment room?
Yeah. So basically, we have also two 3.5 millimeter jack ports on the dock. So we're actually going to ship one IR extender in the box. So if the room is close by, then you can just use an IR extender to reach those devices. Otherwise, we are supporting multi-dock, multi-remote setups. So if you have maybe other rooms or other devices that are in different location, you can just add an additional dock that sits next to devices in another room and can control those. So yeah, we have this system where you can reach a lot of devices in different locations through the network.
Cool. And that's the benefit of being able to hook that up through Wi-Fi so that you can communicate to those different things. Here's another good question here.
Yeah.
Steve asked, like Harmony Elite, can you create scenes? We haven't talked about that yet. Can you switch from one activity to another versus turning everything off, etc.?
Yeah. So you will be able to create activities and you'll be able to combine a lot of different things. So you can combine actually IR commands with IP commands, sending it to either directly to devices or home automation systems. So you can set up a scene which turns on your TV with IR, sends a IP command to your home automation system to dim the lights, and maybe controls your Sonos speakers directly and switch to an input there. And when you create these activities, obviously you can map it to buttons directly. So with a press of a button, you can launch an activity.
And those can be customized as well. So you can use
Yeah.
any button to code or to assign any function, basically.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love
except the
fact-
power button. Yeah.
yeah, we got to kind of
We-
leave that one alone.
We've got limits.
Yeah.
So definitely, that's one of the things I love, the ability to be able to say, okay, I want this specific button on my remote because I never use it for anything, and it's like, okay, I'm going to use that when I'm in this scene to control this. Maybe you want, to control your lights, and that's one
Yeah.
thing that's cool about this. And I think you've got a demonstration of how you actually have it set up in your own home to control those lights. And so, I think you guys are really going to like even the way that's displayed. It's a lot different than what I'm used to. It's just sleek, man. And even things like being able to create your own custom graphics for certain parts of the remote. I like that as a graphic designer, man, because I'm gonna be putting some cool stuff behind there. So definitely just some things that I'm excited about that my current Harmony Elite doesn't offer. Grayson, thanks so much for the super chat. He says, I'm using PF Sense as a router. I can allow only TCP UDP ports when reaching out to the internet. So what ports are allowed for checking updates in the LAN side, not WAN?
I think it's I guess it's about the software update for the remote. We haven't actually settled on any ports yet. What we're going to use. What I can tell you that there's a web server running on the remote on a standard port 80, where you can reach the web configurator, and probably it's going to be a pretty standard port that we're going to end up using for the software update. But we haven't decided on yet, so I cannot really tell you exactly what it's going to be.
It's probably just HTTPS or
Some
something
secure connection. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of speaking of that, I think we had some conversation on like how will you be able to program the remote to be able to add those scenes, to be able to add your devices, kind of maybe give some thought as to what's that process kind of look like.
Yeah. So we are building a web-based configuration tool. So you don't have to download any apps on your phone or tablet. Basically, just open a web browser and the remote will tell you the address where you need to go. And with this web configurator tool, you'll be able to create activities, customize the user interface, by drag and drop, removing and adding different devices there, add profiles, set pin codes for profiles, and basically do all the settings and the options that are available on the remote, change the brightness of the display, etc. And again, this web configuration tool is using the same API that we will provide for anyone to use. So basically, we have one core API that's the brains of the whole thing, and our own applications, the user interface, is using the same programming API. So if you have this tool, then you can look up the source code of that, because that's also going to be open source, and you can just connect it to whatever you mean. So it's going to be a really easy way of configuring the remote. We have some options on the device itself to rearrange the order of devices, add new devices, create new pages, etc. So we have basic functionality. But
Gotcha.
if you would like to deep dive into fully customizing and uploading images and stuff like that,
Yeah.
then you have the web tool.
That makes sense. It'd be kind of hard to do that from like your mobile device. And
Yeah,
so
but for the quick options, you'll use the remote probably, and if you do the bigger updates like you rewired your whole home theater system and that kind of stuff, then well, it doesn't make sense to do it from the remote. So you will probably take the web configuration unit, but
yeah.
both are more or less, well, it depends on the feature, but interchangeable. At least the quick stuff it can be done on the remote. But typing a hex code, if you find that very rare hex code that nobody has, well,
Right.
you're not going to type it in on the remote because
Yeah.
it'd be crazy. So
Yeah, that makes total sense. Very cool. So one thing that you kind of got me thinking about is what about like when you initially get this and you're setting up the remote? I know some remotes require you to like log in and create a user and a profile and things like that. How will that process be with the YIO remote?
Yeah, so we don't require any subscriptions or profiles to be created.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you can get started in a few minutes. If you would like to.
There's
Sorry?
actually one profile you need to create, but that's just your own profile located right in the remote.
I got you.
So there's nothing sent to the servers or stuff like that. So that's the only profile we need to be there, because then on the other hand, if you don't create your own profile for your remote, it wouldn't be much more sense to have the remote also for profile settings or family members that maybe would be able to activate the settings page or something like that. So that's all there, but nothing goes out from that, and you don't need to register on any type of thing, except you would like to use the service like a Spotify service or something. Then that's gonna be the same situation as with all of the other integrations. You just need to log in with your existing credentials to that service.
Okay, very cool. Those of you that are just joining, I know we've got close to 200 in the chat. The YIO remote is currently in development. They've got their Kickstarter program. I've got a link to it down in the description below. A lot of details on the remote. They've got videos, they've got photos, a list of specs, a list of what devices they're wanting to support kind of out of the gate. And so definitely check that out maybe after the stream. So keep your questions coming. We'd love to answer as many of those as we can during the live stream, during the time that we have. I saw one here. Will I be able to use my old Harmony hub? No, because it doesn't use a hub, right?
No.
Yeah. And there was a other interesting one. It kind of made sense, but I think financially it would be probably not an option. Somebody said, "Can you buy Harmony's database?"
Yeah, we need to have a very good Kickstarter.
Yeah, I don't think any of us could afford that, what they would want for that. But yeah, so that would be nice to be able to just drop that in. But so cool. So speaking of that, this isn't going to be for everyone. And we've had some lengthy conversation, Martin. They realize that it's not a super inexpensive $50 remote, $100 remote, but roughly, and we're not going to hold you to it, but what are we kind of looking at roughly price wise? Maybe both now on the Kickstarter as well as possibly when it goes to launch.
Yeah. So currently on the Kickstarter, you can get it for 369 euros. That is, I don't know how much in dollars.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
420,
maybe 400 or something. Yeah.
Let's see if I can share.
I think it's like 425 US dollars. And once it's gonna be available, we plan to make it available after we ship to all the Kickstarter backers. So the Kickstarter's backers are gonna get the remotes first, and then when everyone got it, possibly we'll have a web store or something like that where it will be available. It's just our initial pricing, so don't hold me to it. But it's probably going to go for around like 449 euros.
Okay.
And we'll try to figure something out by the time we get there, how we can make it affordable in the US, maybe doing similar things like other companies do, to have it for 49 euros in Europe and for $49 in the US. Trying to work with that, we still have a lot of number crunching to do to figure it out, but something like that. So
Okay.
yeah.
So Steve has a question, kind of how that integrates maybe with lighting. Will you communicate with Insteon hubs for lighting? I'm assuming your device can also be tied into Alexa so that you can simplify and, turn this on.
Yeah. So we don't have Insteon on our launch list, but I assume it has also an API. So in the future, it would be possible to add it to the supported list. And again, maybe if someone from the community has this system and he really wants to make it happen and happens to be a developer, maybe that way it will be added sooner than later. So yeah, any IP based system that has an API has the possibility to be supported by the remote. It's just up to actually being able to develop the driver for the integration.
Gotcha. What about like backing up your configuration? Is there a way to do that?
Yes, there will be an option in the web configurator to download your configuration and
Yeah.
restore it if something happens and you need to factory reset the remote.
Gotcha. In case something gets whacked. So
Yeah.
any replacement parts? Because I know yours, and actually in just a minute we're gonna hit pause on the questions because I want to jump in and let you at least see this, and I think it'll help spawn some more questions.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
well, let's go ahead and answer this one. Do you plan on offering upgraded parts, as it becomes available?
That's a good question, and I cannot really answer that right now. But what we'll be offering probably is replacement parts. So we designed this remote with the mindset that you'll be able to replace the battery yourself, and if something goes wrong, uh, it's not that complicated to repair it. So we try to create something that could live a long time and not just throw it out after a little while.
All right, very cool. Well, I want to go ahead and jump into Martin. Pull this thing out, man.
Yeah,
Give us a
sure.
little tour of kind of. And again, let me just preface this. This is not 100% fully, not functioning, but fully developed software. So there are some things that they're wanting to do, some things that they're striving to do, and only time will tell, whether or not they're going to be able to get that implemented by the time of launch. Um, of course, being able to update the software part of it throughout the year, throughout, as they develop it more, that could add functionality to it. But even just what I saw the other day when I joined your live stream, um, I was like, dude, I'm pumped up. I really am. It seems like Reginald, I saw he got excited. He said, man, I can't wait to buy this product. So that was kind of me. I'm looking at going, I just see the potential here. And
If
I
if
told Mark,
you if you got to choose one of the best parts or the things that you most liked about the remote when you saw it, what would it be?
so honestly, one of my biggest gripes with my Harmony, again, that's all I've ever really owned, is the fact that the screen is so stinking delayed.
Yeah,
I want something that acts more like my phone because I use my phone every day. I want it responsive. I want it when I move. I don't want it to go, let me think about that. Oh, you want me to do something? And that's kind of how I feel with the Harmony. But I
yeah,
think part of the problem there is the brains aren't in the remote itself. The brains are in the hub. And so there's almost like this delay. The hub has to tell the remote what to do. And so it's going, it's going to take me a minute to get that information to you versus with yours, you got this sweet response time. And I would imagine even as you get closer to development, you're going to even tweak that and optimize that to maybe even be faster than what it is now. But just what I was seeing, a color touch display, it looks beautiful, it looks sleek. Honestly, there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I like where you guys are going. And I think the home theater community in particular, which is mostly what my channel consists of, I think they're really, really going to appreciate that. So, Martin, man, let's dive into it. Show us what you
Yeah,
got
sure.
here, bro.
I'll just switch the camera to remote. There we go. So I hope it's. I'll try
you're
to.
good.
It's visible.
That looks great.
Close it up. Close up. Yeah. So yeah, once again, this is like a super early alpha version of the software, so it might crash on live stream. I don't know. I hope not.
We got faith in you, man.
Yeah. Okay, but I'll just go through some basics of the user interface and how we organize things and how you navigate and how you can do basic stuff. Um, and let's see if some questions come up, and then we can show some other things as well. So basically, we organize the rooms or areas into pages. So as you can see, if I move around, so I have all these rooms here with bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room, and if I tap here, I get a list of all these rooms, and I can go to the kitchen as well. So basically, you can do all the navigation with the buttons and also the touch screen. So whatever you prefer, we're trying to build the user experience that you can either do it just by using the buttons or using the touch screen. And then you see all the devices and entities here. That's maybe in the kitchen, or if I go to in the living room, we have different things there. And inside a page, you see all these lights and thermostat and shades and whatnot. And you can also create groups here. So you see there's this light that says 3 entities inside. And if I open it up, then you see I have 3 lights in there. So then I can maybe turn on this lamp and turn on this lamp and then close it up, and I can turn on the group. So you can customize it in a way that if you have multiple lights that you would like to control at the same time, you can just group them. Or if you want, you can just control them individually. And if I pop into one of these, then you will see the controls. So you can change the brightness of the light on the touchscreen, or you can also use the buttons. And you don't see it on the video, but there's a haptic feedback as I'm doing it. So as I'm moving my finger here on the slider, I can feel on the touchscreen like these small bumps as I go through one and one
And
step.
that's an indescribable feature. But that's if somebody if somebody gets the remote and looks at it and use the slider, it's every response is the same. It's like people are amazed, like, whoa, this feels really cool. Like you feel the bumps like sliding, and it feels alive. It's hard to explain. You have to feel it to believe it. But
it's probably the equivalent when I got the PS5 and they had the haptic feedback in the controller.
Yeah,
What the heck, man? I'm pulling the trigger and I'm like getting some response from the remote itself. So just adds to that, I don't know, maybe connection with your device. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it feels like a layer. Like, okay, 2 clicks, slide 2 clicks is enough. Like it's something extra, and it doesn't seem like much, but it adds so much like depth in how you perceive it. It's
also, if you don't like it, you can just turn it off.
Yeah. Sure.
Nobody would.
I don't think that's an option for anybody. But if you don't like haptic feedback or you don't like the feeling of the motor, you can tweak it a little bit and also turn it completely off. So
yeah.
So it sounds like we're going to have a lot of customization. Before we kind of continue with that, let me just thank Rolex. Appreciate the super chat, buddy. Will it be able to tie into webhooks from, say, like a Plex server? And this is kind of cool. I don't know about what a webhook is, but I know there's something that you mentioned yesterday, Martin, about Plex that I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah, so we actually plan to support Plex. We're planning to create an integration for Plex, which would connect your server and could actually pull data from the server. So potentially you'll be able to see the movie posters or or album covers on the remote when you're playing something and choose one. And obviously the data when you're playing something, where's the movie at, etc.
Very cool, man. To me, that's exciting to be able to
Yeah,
see
but
that.
yeah, just the webhooks part, but probably we're gonna have an integration that's just gonna handle webhooks,
I
so
got you.
you can just hook it up to anywhere.
You see what he did there? You can just hook it up there. Yeah, I like
No
that.
pun
I like
intended.
that. That's right. That's right. All right, let's go back to it, man.
Yeah,
Show us some
okay.
more of this beautiful remote.
All right, so we have. I will just go through some of the UI elements, and then we can look at some other things as well. So we're here in the light, so you can change the brightness, and depends on the type of the light. Here you can also set the color of the light, and we have options that you can save these options here at the bottom. So if I press and hold in one of these circles, that it saves the color. So next time you're there, you can just save your favorite ones.
Okay,
Um,
you've been holding out on me, man, because you didn't show that in the last demo. That's slick. See, all these little nuggets, man. I'm learning more about the functionality of this thing.
Yeah,
We
we
need to
plan to add a
surprise
lot of.
our guests. So
What's that?
we need to surprise our guests with every new video we're bringing out, as it would be quite slow
Yeah.
and not think
And
to show everything in one video.
yeah,
So.
that makes sense. That makes sense. So speaking of that, you guys do have your own YouTube channel, and you also have a Discord server. I forgot to put a link down in the description, but once I finish with this video, I'll make sure I add it down there. But definitely hit these guys up on Discord. Martin and his team are super active there. So if you've got questions about this, definitely reach out to them there. They're super, super active. But like I said, also just some other avenues that you can kind of get more information about that. So, but I'll post that down in the description after we get done with the live stream. Because you've got more videos that you're going to be doing. I think Martin was saying possibly
Yeah,
in the next week or two, you'll kind of, as you develop new things, hey, let's talk about it. And I think that's a
yeah.
great way to do that.
Yeah, and basically that's our goal also with the Kickstarter to bring you guys and all of those who support us on the journey, and we're going to share information about how we are actually planning the manufacturing, what are we doing, and when we get to getting some parts, etc., we're going to share some photos and information about how we're actually building up this company that's going to sell this product. So I think it's a pretty exciting thing that you can do these, and it's not just you're buying a product, but you can kind of get a behind the scenes look through Kickstarter, how it comes to actually alive. Yeah, so when I was talking about the album covers, so here we have a media player where you can see the album. If I press onto the next song, then it loads up the album cover. I have the physical buttons controlling the volume. And a cool thing that we're doing is that we have this we call it for now the activity bar at the bottom, which is basically kind of takes the color from the song and displays it there.
Nice.
And this activity bar is collecting all the activities that are running. And let's say if I tap on this watch movies activity, then it will go through the activity, launch all the devices, and when it's done, it will show me this interface that I can decide what I'm gonna put on. So for example, this square is the touch area for Apple TV, and I can put two buttons up there which could send an IR command to maybe the TV, or turn off the projector or something like that. And if I go out of this now, I don't know if you can see on the stream, but I have basically two activities running. So I can swipe left and right here, and it
Nice.
says the watch movies activity is running, and then the living room 5.1 system is playing some music. And it doesn't matter where I am. I can just tap on it, and it brings me the controls for that activity, or media player, or speaker, or whatnot that you're using. So whenever I'm over this 5.1 system, and I can use the volume keys to actually control the volume of that system.
Mm-hmm.
But if I switch over to the watch movies and I do the same, then obviously it's going to change the volume of the TV or the receiver or however you configured it. And when I press the power off key, I get a list of activities that are running that I can choose to turn off or turn everything off. Or I can just go up here and turn off the activity by just pressing the turn off button, and then it will disappear also from this activity bar. And then I can go in and say, okay, I'm going to turn off the music now, and it will also disappear. So I think it's a quite cool way to organize all the activities, and the remote figures out basically based on your configuration what to do when you're pressing these physical buttons. And as we mentioned earlier, you can customize it. You can say, I don't want the volume to control the volume.
Right.
I want the volume to control, I don't know, skipping to the next song, for example, if you want to do that.
So
Yeah,
one thing I'm seeing is like it's almost like the power of something like a Control 4 or a Crestron. Because a lot of guys have been telling me that. They're like, Michael, why you just need to look at Crestron. Well, the reality to me, the hangups that I have with that, and it's, again, it's a certain market that they're after. I want to be able to control pretty much every aspect of programming, setting up, configuring, making changes, tweaking it. I want to be able to do that on my end. And so with something like a Crestron or a Control 4, I have to send that information to a CI, a custom integrator, and have them program it. A lot of times there's a fee involved in that too, because they don't work for free, or you have a subscription base with them. So especially with me as a content creator, I'm reviewing products and swapping products. So I physically can't do that. I need control over that. But I'm just seeing so much more like functionality in your remote, kind of like what you would get and expect with Crestron. But what I love and I'm really excited about is the consumer is going to be able to program that and design it how they want, which is super, super slick to me.
Yeah. So actually, that's one of the things that we do here is to give you full control over the remote, and you can configure it how you would like to. So you definitely don't need to call for a developer or integrator to come and program it for you. We try to build that configuration interface as user friendly as possible. We put a lot of effort into the user interface and the user experience. We go through the flows, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, try out a lot of different things, and try to create these interfaces that make sense and just it's very easy to use. But at the same time, also cater to those guys who want full control and want to deep dive into creating extremely custom integrations. And then we provide the APIs and the open source software so they can do that as well.
Nice. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for the super chat. Chris has a question here. He says, will this integrate with smart thermostats as well? And if it does, how does that kind of sync up with that?
Yeah. So basically, it can integrate with smart thermostats. I believe Nest and all these guys have some sort of API. We don't have these devices on our launch list yet. So actually, if you are using one of these thermostats through a smart home system that we're planning to support, like Home Assistant, Home Open Hub, etc., then you'll be able to control these from day one. But if you would like to control them separately, then probably it's going to take us some time to get up on our list of devices that we're planning to support, or maybe the community will pitch in with an integration, and then it's going to work. What's cool thing about our concept is that we're designing these interfaces for different device types. So we have one interface for a light, one for a blind, one for a TV remote, and it doesn't really matter what kind of backend system is talking to it. It could be anything, because a light is a light. It's going to do the same thing. You can dim the light, change the color, maybe change the color temperature, and turn it on and off. And it doesn't matter if it's a Philips Hue system or it's controlled with the home automation system. So we're going to provide all these user interfaces for the different device types. And if you want to do your own thing, then you basically just translate in between the system and the remote, and the remote will display your data and you can control it.
Also, we plan to have an open communication about the status of integration, if they are community developed or how, in which status they are actually. So we plan to do this as open as possible from our side, so the user is able to see if his wished integration is maybe on development or if there is an issue on it or stuff like that, so that actually the people are also having the information if they would like to do an update for the remote because their integration is now ready, or if they can skip it because it's just the integration they don't use that we have updated. Also, there are partially updates for the remote available later on. So that's a thing we committed very early in our team, to be as open for these types of stuff as possible. And yeah, so at the moment, the complete really hard work goes to the hardening of the internal or of the complete API, because the internal is also the external version. And if that is in place, all of us are benefit from it, because you can use it, we can use it, everybody can use it, and make the UI do whatever it likes to do, or maybe also use a light as not a light, so just for a switch, but then you can also choose a switch. So yeah, so that's also some stuff that might be happen, or if the user is requesting some features, we are actively hearing, and then we can develop the UI for it, or Martin can design the UI for it, and we can also do the enhancement of the API so that we can benefit all from it, and the user can use the API endpoints just to call out the designed UI. So yeah.
Got lots more questions coming here. I'll try to go through some of them real quick. Is there a fear of running out of memory? And if so, is there a plan to support micro SD?
I don't think we're going to run out of memory with these things, and we're not going to support micro SD. So we have plenty of memory available.
Awesome. So is there a way to default the volume to a specific device? If you, like, say, for instance, you're playing a movie on the Shield and the volume is controlled by the AVR.
Yeah, that's possible.
Okay. I saw several comments about RS-232. Any plans to add that?
No, unfortunately, currently we don't have plans to add that. So sorry.
And Croson is a big fan of the Youth Man channel, so he wants to know if he can have his own custom button that'll go right to my channel.
Probably, yeah.
Should be doable.
That's awesome, man. Oh, too funny, man. So yeah, so like I said, a lot of guys wanted the RS-232, but
yeah, well, we will not have an RS-232 or 323. Well, whatever. Port on either the, well, obviously not the remote and also not the dock, but given the open character of how we set it up, it shouldn't be too hard for somebody to develop this.
Yeah, like using the Raspberry Pi and then, using that as a intermediate device to add support to it.
There should definitely be solutions that could work. Although I believe they're all, or mostly, probably in the hacky part, and well, depends on if you want to go there. But well, there are a lot of serial devices that you can hook up with IP, and we can talk IP. So we're definitely not gonna have an interface directly, but I see options in the future.
Very cool, man. Seems like Chris is excited. He said, "This is awesome. Thank you. I'm sold."
Thanks, Chris.
Couple other questions. We're going to try to keep this close to an hour, so we're going to get to as many more comments as we can. And Martin, if there's anything else you want to show on the remote, we can gladly pop back to that as well.
Yeah, I can show some things.
Yeah, show it, man.
A few more. Yeah, we
You
talked
guys
about
want to see more?
customization. So here you can see you can customize the pages. You will be able to add your custom images on the top if you have multiple rooms, one for the kitchen, one for the living room, etc. If you would like to, you'll be able to do this through the web configurator. And yeah, I mean it's basically I can show you how does it work with a in a live situation. So I switched over to my remote that I use every day. So here I have a desk lamp. So if I press this button, then the light goes off, and if I press it again, it goes on. So I think it's plenty fast enough to be able to control devices. And as you can see, it's getting feedback. So as I turn it off, this little switch turns off, and I turn it on. Then when it gets feedback from the server, then you see it's on again. So it's I think it's pretty fast, and as you can see, if I keep pressing the button, that we're trying to make the UI as smooth as possible. So I hope that we can still improve on it. And I would just like to show you some things here that if you tap on the top right corner, that's your kind of profile page. And you can see it's my profile, and I can have a couple of options here. I can switch to another profile, and you can set up pin codes to lock down the profile. So if you have a pin code on a profile, maybe for your kids or guests, they won't be able to see the settings, so they won't be able to change anything on the remote. And in the settings, we have these default things that you'll be able to change brightness. We have some power savings options you can adjust. Obviously, connect to another Wi-Fi network and customize the location, time zone, etc. So you're going to have some basic options to set it up, but we try to make it super easy to use. And if you use the smartphone, then probably this is not going to be any issue either. So
Nice.
yeah.
So one thing that that I remember us talking about is like battery life, and one of the features that you added into this that I think is pretty slick is kind of like this deep sleep mode. So kind of maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So basically, we have a lot of power in the remote, so we have to make sure that we don't waste that power when the remote is not doing anything. So whenever you're not using the remote, it goes into this deep sleep state when it's turning off all the unnecessary things that are not required to conserve battery life. And we managed to get it into a state where it's really fast. So when you to wake up, so when you either lift the remote up or touch the screen or press a button, it turns on instantly. So I can switch back to camera and probably show you here. So now it's in this sleep state. I haven't touched it for a minute. I don't know. I probably set it to half a minute or something. So whenever I either press a button here, okay, now it's
Now, man,
now it's yeah.
It was doing so good.
Okay, so this was the moment that it didn't work, but even now it's quite fast. So as you can see that it's back online. I can go here, turn off this light, turn it back on, and we can do another test. Wait for a minute to go to sleep, and then hopefully it's going to be behaving a little bit better.
Yeah, it's about 1 or 2 seconds, Martin, right?
Yeah, I think it's 1 second, that basically based on your Wi-Fi and server configuration, how many integrations are you using. It will take a second or two to reconnect to everything. So okay, so now it's off again. So I'll try. So basically, whenever I press this, there you go. So this is how it's supposed to work. So when you press it, it's almost instant. So it takes a second or two to get back, and you can start using it. So with this, basically, we can have a remote that quite powerful, and we can achieve really smooth, fluid user interface and experience. But also it lasts many days on a single charge.
Nice. So several days. And then you mentioned earlier too that so you have a, let's just call it a charging dock. And in that dock, I don't know if you've got one, somebody have one that we can kind of show, if you
Yeah.
possibly have one. They all have one. Just grab it. There you go. All right.
Mine sits there, so I will not grab it yet. But
All right. So here's the
That's a
charging
bit
dock.
dusty.
It's all good. So there's the charging dock that it sits in, and you'll notice on the back there's one connection for an IR extender. They did talk about, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to be adding a second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it was
that's
a stretch goal on Kickstarter, yeah, and they managed to break it down, so we added another IR port. Also, what might be a good mention for that part is that we are able to distinguish where we send the IR commands from. So if the user would like to have the IR commands dedicated sent out to a device he may have connected the IR extender to and push it in a housing or stuff that no other device can reach that IR code sender, then he can sign that IR code dedicated to a device, and then he is able to fire out the IR code just from the downside of the dock or from one of the two extenders, and also from the upper side of the dock. So he can freely manage where to fire the dock. As soon as the remote is got picked up from the dock, the upper two LEDs or the upper LEDs are available for the user, so also for the dock, and then it can be used as a firing station for the IR codes and can be distinguished where to send it. And also we support, as we said earlier as well, multi-dock and multi-remote situations where you might have a dock in another room or a remote that you will travel with you through your room. Don't know. So you can use that to make a dock available in one room only. And if the remote goes to the dock, you can select the room, and then that distinguished dock is used to communicate with the devices you are actually having in that room. And the other one is distinguished to use the devices in your living room and in your home cinema theater, maybe. So that's also an option we are using.
Cool. So you can have multiple docks throughout your home, and those can communicate with those IR devices that are like, because I know one of the questions came up is, you know, I've got my theater room, but I have my equipment in the other room. How's that going to work if you don't use a hub? But the reality is, in a way, that's kind of like the hub. So that would be in there in the cabinet, and then that would send IR commands throughout your cabinet. And then if for whatever reason it doesn't reach something like a component in the cabinet, then you would use an IR and extender and put that, you know, higher up, maybe on the cabinet or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah,
definitely.
I've seen a question from Steve Yorn.
Okay.
He's asking, when you pick up the remote, does it light up, and if the keys are backlit? And yes, it does. I can show you. So I'll turn off this lamp, so it's gonna, hopefully you'll be able to see. But now it's off. I pick it up, so it turns on, and I can go to the settings real quick and bump up the brightness on the keys.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah. So all of them are
probably you can.
Yep.
Now it's
never off.
now it's turned off, but you can I can
Yeah,
turn it back
makes
on.
sense.
So we have backlight there as well.
I'm just curious. So okay, so the bottom right is your power button. Is that correct on there?
Yeah, sorry, I just go.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah, so this is the power button here.
Okay, gotcha. Nice. And then when you hit that, it gives you options sometimes on what do you want to power off.
Yeah, so right now I don't have anything running, so it will not do anything. If I press and hold it for a few seconds, then it gives me the option to power off the remote to reboot it if you ever need it. So yeah.
Gotcha. Man, cool guys. Anything else like that? I know we covered a lot, and I know there's a ton of questions. So again, I'll post a link down to down in the description. I've already got a link to their Kickstarter. On the Kickstarter, do you have a link to your Discord server? Is it on there?
Yes, I think we have. Also, we have a forum where you'll find some information. It's mixed with the DIY remote, so there's a lot of information about that one as well. And
Okay.
it could be a little bit confusing, but yeah, we're there. We're also on Twitter and Instagram and all these things. So shoot, if you have any questions, we'll try to get to them.
And so we always got a comment. Can we play Tetris on this thing?
Tetris? I don't know. Not yet.
If we have time available.
There you go. That's right. So I did drop a link over in the chat to your, this is to the Discord server. So Discord's a great platform that you can ask questions and they can kind of keep you updated. They very frequently add, what they're working on and what they're trying and what is working, what isn't working. And one thing I appreciate about you four guys is that, and the other gentleman wasn't able to make it today, but your desire, I know in our conversation, you desire to be just really transparent with, your customers and saying, look, here's where we're at. Here's where we want to go. And during the progress, I mean, we all know sometimes there are things that kind of hinder us from getting to that. But I think you've done a great job, especially with Discord, to be able to say, hey, here's where we're at. Here's where some things we're working on. And just being transparent with your, audience, customers, potential customers. I think that says a lot about who you are as a company. So definitely appreciate that. So
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very
That's
much.
what we're trying to achieve. So yeah.
Well, guys, is there anything that I missed, anything that you want to share before we wrap up? I know we're right at an hour. We had close to 200 people in the chat, so definitely appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us and just to kind of check out this new product, man. I think it's pretty exciting. So did we miss anything? Is there anything you wanted to share before we wrap up?
I don't know. I think we talked about a lot of things, and probably there's even more to talk about. We can easily fill up a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're gonna share more information as we go forward, and yeah, we'll also be doing our live stream pretty soon, talking about some new stuff. So
cool. So definitely check out their YouTube channel. I'm assuming we can go, well, if you just search for YIO remote, youtube.com. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I'll drop it in the chat. And then we will wrap it up. There it is right there. Boom. We got to get you a custom URL here, man. Do y'all have a custom URL for your YouTube channel? So like mine's youtube.com/youthman.
I don't think so.
All right, so I'll work with you. We'll see if we can get that. That way you can, because watch, I'm gonna drop this in the chat. And it's gonna be some crazy thing.
Oh yeah.
Say there. So we'll just have it. We'll see if we can get it like youtube.com/YIO. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be quite an improvement.
Yeah, so definitely subscribe to their channel, guys, if you're interested in this. If you want to kind of keep up to date on where they are in the progress, check out their Discord server, and I'll post a link to all these after we finish up down in the description. So appreciate you guys. Hope y'all have an incredible week, guys. Hang tight right here as we wrap up, and we will catch y'all in the next video. Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.